have the confidence to commit to those opportunities. And if they capitalise on them, it might make money, good on you. But if you don't capitalise on those opportunities, then they might be gonski. You with me? This is a classic right here. The rope goes over the side, the wind dies down. 3 days, we're flogging around in Commonwealth Bay, Antarctica, trying to get there, but just couldn't get there because we're not sailing on water, we're sailing on like a 7-Eleven Slurpee, like a mushy ice. And we just couldn't get there because when the wind died down, what happened is we did the logical thing. You're on a motorboat, right? A motorboat. And the wind dies down. But you've got to have momentum, because if you don't have momentum, you can't move the boat away from these icebergs the size of small countries. So what do? Start the engine, absolutely. Start the engine, bang. Rope goes in the propeller, no more motor, and no more going to Antarctica. For 3 days, we flog around in Commonwealth Bay, Antarctica, trying to get there, but just not able to get there because we haven't got the motor. Some wind's picked up, but we just can't push through the ice to get there. 1 second, you're going upwind at 10 kilometres an hour. Next thing you know, you're going screaming straight past the iceberg you just saw at 30 k's an hour. And the patron for the trip, a guy called David Hempelman Adams, a fellow I'll tell you about in a second, the only guy in the world to have climbed the 7 summits. That's the highest summit of every continent, and to walk the 4 poles. He's a philanthropist, he's a documentary maker, and he was just the man that I wanted to be. I wanted to be like him. And he was patron for this trip, and he was in what I call a conundrum. A bit of a conundrum. 10 people on a boat, stuck in Antarctica, life challenging, and we're not going to get there. Well, that's what I call an opportunity. And I felt that I was in a place where great people had been. I mean, there was my great hero, Sir Douglas Mawson. Sir Douglas Mawson was the first Australian to the South Magnetic Pole in 1908. My great hero. And I was brought up on stories of Mawson and Shackleton and Cook. You know, Cook, who first came to Australia without a chronometer, without a watch, just by doing lunar sightings for time. These incredible explorers. Now you can imagine, explorers have got a bit of mojo, haven't they? They didn't have Gore-Tex, and they didn't have GPSs, and they didn't have iPod and phones and anything. They didn't have all the gadgets around them, but still they went. Back then, hearsay was the earth was flat. People like Columbus went anyway, and Magellan, first to circumnavigate the world. The thing that I noticed about these former explorers in that era there, they were all beholden to those that would pay their way to do it. You see? Magellan had to change which country his origin. He had to give up Portugal to become Spanish so he could get under the Spanish funding. Columbus went under, as I said before, King Ferdinand II and Queen Elizabeth to get funding for his exploration to find India, which ended up being America, and that's why the Native Americans are called Indians. The fact is, those that went there were going under the funding of others. But with David, I noticed that he was doing whatever he wanted, you see, because he had money. And another component that I've learnt about people with mojo, they've got the confidence to commit, and they've got money, you see. Now, having the money is a catalyst for choice, and it's about exercising choice. And that was the distinction I noticed, and that was the distinction that I wanted to learn from, and I wanted to learn from the best. So I went up to David. I'd been previously to see the ship's doctor, and I said, Ollie, how long would you give me if I dived over the side to cut the rope free? And there were no wetsuits on board, so it wasn't great, such preparation. And he said 5 minutes, not 1 second longer, because I'm not getting somebody getting hypothermia on my watch. Well, it was good enough for me. I go to see David, and everyone's looking at the charts, and the charts are no longer facing south to get to Mawson's Hut and to get to Antarctica. The charts are now facing north. We're going to cut our losses and get out of here. And I said to David, I'm volunteering to dive over the side to cut the rope free. And he said, "You're serious?" I said, "Yes, I'm serious. But I want 3 things. I want it filmed, hence the footage. Secondly, I want the international film rights to the footage, hence the documentary. And thirdly, David, I want you to be my mentor. I want you to mentor me to become the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole." So we drove the yacht in behind the biggest and juiciest icebergs we could find to get out of the slop of the wind, because with the wind slapping against the boat, it was.
But it was just so cold, it was almost hard to make your brain work.
That's it, do that, that's it. Okay, I'll let it water now. good, mate. Off we go, son. Don't get tangled with the line. Don't go cutting the safety line off.
See, it's 12 feet to dive down, so by the time you get there, you haven't got much breath left. And I just reached out and cut, and I cut and cut, chopping against the rope, knowing the whole time that the clock was ticking.
A few bubbles came up. We waited. We waited.
I came up to the surface and they said, Pete, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And I came up to the surface and I go, have you ever fallen in, I mean, you guys live in the Gold Coast, for goodness sake, but if you live in Melbourne, if you fall in a pool or the dam in Melbourne in the winter, every molecule of air in your lungs is taken away by the cold. And I couldn't say what I wanted to say. But what I wanted to say was change. The word that I wanted was change. Because some of us often in life avoid change, as if change is a bad thing. But change can be a good thing. If the change is a better strategy that can take you to where you want to go, even if the change is different to the strategy you had before. Because maybe the old strategy doesn't serve you anymore. And maybe it's time to take on a new strategy. You with me? Well, I went down there. You still holding that rope? Thanks, James. I said to Roy on the bow, I said, hold the rope tight, 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 so when I cut it, it'll come away. But when I got down there, I swam 12 feet diagonally, just holding my breath to get down there. By the time I got down there, I found the rope was so thick, and there's so much of it, and the bit of the rope that I want's at the bottom of the stainless steel shaft, and I wasn't going to get there in 5 minutes. And so I realised that change was going to be my friend. And I said, Roy, give me 4 feet more slack. So Roy gave me 4 feet more slack. And now with the slack, I dived down one more time. And I unravelled the rope over the prop. And the rope came free. When I came back to mainland Australia after that expedition, and I got to know David and the team better, and I went and climbed Kosciuszko with David and Rebecca, the first English person to climb Mount Everest, and Ollie, the ship's doctor, and myself. And I started hanging out with these people, and I realised they weren't special. There was nothing they had that I didn't have or couldn't get. You with me? And I started to investigate the whole concept of a 21st century adventurer, you see, a 21st century adventurer. And the distinction with a 21st century adventurer is they've got mojo. And the mojo they've got, and I'm sorry, you capitalist pigs, but we need to have that capacity to exercise pure choice, to distinguish ourselves from Magellan and Columbus and Cook and Mawson and Shackleton and Amundsen, to be free of the burdensome of the financing of others. Isn't it time for us to take control of our own finances now? Yeah? And isn't it time for us now to have the capacity to spend and to invest and to give at will? And to have the capacity to watch that thing that we give to grow and create a legacy, and start turning our thoughts into thoughts of legacy and not into thoughts of survival. Wouldn't now be a good time to start those thoughts and to start taking those actions to create that possibility and to bring those mentors into your life, those people who have been there before? Wouldn't now be a good time to start taking on those opportunities and start taking those changes? Well, that's what I decided right there and then. And I started to study David and what he'd done, the 7 summits, all the records, the partnership he has with Prince Charles. He came over to see me one weekend. He flew back on the Tuesday because he had a meeting with Prince Charles. He was teaching me his best of how to put the documentaries together, the fundraising. You look at people like Branson. You know, there's a character. I mean, the Virgin was just a record company. And I flew up with Virgin today, and there they are, you know, everything from credit cards and mobile phones and car rentals and all the rest of it. But the fundamental principle each of these modern-day 21st century adventurers have is philanthropy. Because I said this to David. I said, David, when I died the other side, I said, David, I want you to mentor me to be the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. And he says, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm serious, but I want 3 things. And he says, I'll do it, but it'll cost you. And I said, bring it on, how much? And he said, £10,000, 10,000 British pounds. I said, bring it on. All I had was a fledgling little cookie company flogging cookies to Japan. And I said, bring it on. Because when your why is high enough, you'll find the how. And I said, bring it on. And I said, David, I'm going to be the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. I'm going to be. And he turns to me and he says to me, is that all? David, I'm sorry, I am going to be the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. And he turns to me and he goes, is that all? He says, Blue, he used to call me Blue when I used to have hair. Blue, turn your life into a life of significance, or all you'll have is what you've got. Turn your life into a life of significance. And that, for me, beneath the southern aurora, the lights of the Southern Ocean, on the Southern Ocean, the southern lights, as the magnetic field enters through the stratosphere into the atmosphere, talking with David beneath the stars, and he's saying, turn your life into a life of significance. Commit yourself to causes that are greater than you. And if you look at these philanthropists now, look at what, $3 billion from Richard or Dick Smith. Dick Smith started the Variety Bash just by taking some mates on a drive to Burke. Gave $1 million last year, and Variety, each state raises just under $2 million per year now. Modern day adventurer travellers, which I'm asking you to become part of also, have a fundamental agreement with the universe that they'll give back to a cause that is greater than them. Because by giving to that thing that is greater than you, you might be like a balloon that a little person blows into. You get a little balloon and you blow a breath into it, what happens? The balloon gets bigger. You know what that is when you blow a balloon, it gets bigger? That is inspiring a balloon. In fact, the word to inspire, apparently I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm not sure how inspirational you are, but you're still here, which is good. To inspire comes from the word aspare, Latin derivative. Aspare means to breathe life. I am asking you to be a 21st century adventurer, travel with me, and to travel this globe and to inspire others with your stories of doing and daring, of taking on the market and winning, of taking on a small child and getting them educated in Africa, and caring for those around you on the journey with you. I'm asking you to be an inspiring traveller with me. Does it sound good? And that's why I look at that footage now when I come here on stage and it gives me goosebumps, because this is exactly what I do now, which is 10 years almost to the day from that avalanche. And to think that I allowed myself to be dictated by that avalanche for so long, it just seems ridiculous. But it took my friend to tell me my own story to realise this formula. And the formula is simply this: the confidence to commit to opportunities. This is a mojo compass that travels with, this is a physical compass that travels with you. You've got a compass that gives you directions, and from that direction, you can take a bearing, and you can go wherever you like, knowing where you're going because you've got one constant. It's like having a run on a ladder, having that constant. The confidence to commit to opportunities. And money is nothing but an energy. I've been broke, I've been rich, I've been in between. Money is just an energy. In fact, I say it's my own natural energy yield. It's just a yield of your energy, what you're putting out there. And it's proportional to the task you're taking on. And it was taught to me, again, this is by Andrew, my doctor friend in my hospital bed, and he says to me, haven't you remembered what I taught you? And what he taught me was this: if this is tasks and this is resources, and resources can be money or time, and tasks can be otherwise known, many people call them problems. Otherwise known. You know the only time you'll have no problems in your life, don't you? The only time you have no problems in your life? 6 feet under. So what's the moral of the story? Go and get some worthy problems. Some really big, chunky problems, like having a 210-foot Russian icebreaker that's for $500,000 down the table with no people on it. That's a worthy problem. That's a problem that I had in May this year. It's now full. But the fact is, it's a worthy problem, you see? Go and get some worthy problems, because I've got my mojo back now, okay? Mojo thinking starts here. Scarcity thinking starts over here. So Andrew says to me, what you're doing is you're looking at your resources, and all you're doing is you're looking at your debt and your guilt. And when you look at your debt and your guilt, all you'll ever do is you'll bring it across over here, and you'll give yourself a task or a problem that's equal to that resource. You with me? Does that make sense? But a person with mojo doesn't look to the resources, they consider the possibilities, because I don't know why I deliberately made that messier, because I couldn't actually spell curious, but they are curious about their own capacity, and they set the benchmark up here. And the rule that every one of my stories has shown you so far, and the story that I'll show you next, is testimony to that. That when you set the task with the vital ingredient, belief, the resources will come. Do people agree with that? Seen examples in your life where you've really gone for something. But the distinction between watching The Secret and putting it down there and going, oh my God, this is fantastic. There's a $30,000 bill, and oh my goodness, it just became $1 million check. Bullshit, okay? It just doesn't happen, all right? It doesn't happen. Get off your behind and take some massive action to turn that thought into reality. You with me? And you'll only take that massive action to turn that thought into reality when you believe. And through the believing, you will have the confidence to commit. You have the confidence to commit, it's amazing what will happen. Because it all is hinging beneath the pinning of significance, of helping others, a cause that is greater than you. A cause that allow you to be inspired to, like a balloon, grow bigger. And as you are inspired yourself, you become a light that shines to others. So my story is being told to me. And he said to me,
It's 7 hours before Peter comes round. The heart is coping. The question is, do his legs work? There is a simple test. Wiggle the toes. It is a great relief he has some mobility in his legs. But the battle is not over. Conventional wisdom says that recovery will be a slow and painful process. Peter is not very tolerant of conventional wisdom. A couple of days after the operation, Peter is struck by the promotional potential of his situation.
Well, what happened was this. I was back here in Australia. I was studying all these great explorers. I was thinking, I'm going to be a great big explorer. It's going to be incredible. I'm as fit as a mallee bull. I'm pulling this tire on the beach, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the next thing you know, I'm being wheeled. It's as quick as that. As quick as the change for you then, it was as quick as that for me. Next thing you know, I'm in the Royal Melbourne Hospital. I remember I'm sitting there. And I said to the doc, okay, doc, I'm lying there actually. And I said, okay, doc, can you fix it tomorrow? Can you leave it for 6 months? And he said, no. But why? And I said, oh, sorry, Doc, I'm Peter Bland, and I'm committed to becoming the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. In fact, £10,000, I put a deposit down. If you can knock it off tomorrow, we can leave it for 6 months. And he said, no. Peter, I think you better lie down there and realise the gravity of the situation. We're going to cut out your aorta and replace it with a bit of Dacron. There's a risk of paralysis and there's a risk of rejection of the graft. And you're not going anywhere. Well, then I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. Now, why do you think I might have cried? Losing the dream. Not the scarring. I got bigger scars than that. It wasn't the scarring, it was the losing of the significance that I might become. I lost my mojo. And the losing of the mojo was from the believing of somebody else's words. And I went so low, and it took David, again, my mentor, to send me a note. And he sent me a note, and he says, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Get off your behind and turn this into an opportunity. And that's why the footage says, when Pete woke up, he thought it was a great opportunity. Because I decided during that period in intensive care, with my mentor's help, this is a great opportunity. And opportunities are what? And you got to grab them. And all of a sudden, the documentary wasn't going to be pole to pole anymore. It was going to be operating table to the top of the world. And so we got the footage. And all my mates said to me, Blandy, it's so lucky you got that footage when you were a cook. Like, it was using your book, and it was using your documentary, and it was using your mini-series, and it was using this other documentary this year. So lucky you got that footage when you were a crook. Luck? There wasn't any luck. There was an opportunity, and we had the confidence to commit to the opportunity. And the fact that I made a couple of dollars out of it, that's neither here nor there. That inbuilt compass, it's true. The confidence to commit to opportunities can become money if you've got the persuasion, the attitude, and the systems. This is the systems, and this is a quick talk tonight, and I'm almost done, actually. And I haven't even told you where I'm going, but I'm just talking about the systems behind it. You with me? But that's what took me from there, from having nothing, absolutely from nothing. Lost my company, lost my business, I lost my business, lost my savings, but I had a dream, and I had a dream that wouldn't go away. And thank God I had made that commitment to David, the deposit for that expedition to the North Magnetic Pole, because that's what drove me out of that hospital bed, and finally to arrive in northwest Canada 13 months from that photo. This footage was taken by Channel 9 for the Today Show. You see, I became that little thing, that little inspiration to people. In fact, I became an inspiration for little people. In fact, every single school child in Australia was given the opportunity to work out how many times my heart would beat from base camp in northwest Canada, in a place called Resolute Bay. It's not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there, to the pole. And they would work out how many times my heart would beat, because I no longer have an aorta. My aorta's been cut out. I've got a bit of tubing from my heart to my diaphragm. And that became this polar trek against heart disease. It was minus 40 degrees wind chill factor. It was so cold. We had to smash it. Here's my ice stood over here, actually. Had to smash yourself in the face just to break the ice off. And as you broke the ice off, you could make a little breathing hole so you could breathe through here. In fact, I got this real ice wool fur, and the ice wool fur is fantastic because it heats the air up. It takes it up from about minus 39 to about minus 40, so you can breathe it. But you know, polar bears, frostbite, losing 10% of your body weight, all that was nothing. What was going through my mind was this. I made a bunch of promises to sponsors in Australia, and I wanted to honour that promise. I mean, if I wanted to move out of Melbourne, that'd be okay, but I wanted to go back to Melbourne, and these sponsors lived in Melbourne. The trouble with making these promises was that one of the sponsors, this particular sponsor, was actually a clothing